Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Mendo Metal Podcast, episode 4. Today we have a very special guest with us today. We have Sam Lanyon, who was in some sick bands and is doing his own project, Sam Lanyon Project, as well as other projects he's done, such as Ontogeny, Mummification, which is definitely a band from Mendocino County that was doing its thing for a long time. And currently he's doing a project as well as his own called the Future Ancients. The guy named Alejandro Yanez, who used to be in a band called Chained Existence, who also has quite a history here in the Mendocino County. So yeah, we just want to welcome Sam. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hell yeah, man. It's cool to get you on here. Really been digging your stuff, doing a little bit of research leading up to this podcast, man, and the stuff you're doing on guitars, just it's so nuts, man. It's out of this world. I mean, it sounds alienistic, dude. It's really fucking cool.
Thank you so much for that. I need that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
How many releases do you have under the Sam Lanyon project? It's like
so
three or four, isn't it?
no. So far as like an official release, not just singles or whatever fun I decided to have on YouTube. I just have one EP, which is
Nice.
SL1, and that was just a compilation of songs that I was working on under one template on the old MacBook Pro 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, no, that
And
was,
that's like with a
I
seven
just
string
decided,
guitar,
yeah,
right?
why not release it? No, it's with an eight string, actually.
Damn.
It's with an eight string Ibanez RG8. They're $400 model. So yeah, it was a lot of fun making that thing on a standard fret eight string 27-inch scale.
Is it a lot different than playing a six string? Is it like pretty involved compared to a six string, or was it something that
So
was
it's
easy for
extended
you?
range. It easy. So it's just like jumping from a six to a seven, but then just adding another low string for the low eight string. Some people do it differently. They add another high string on top of that high E and play it that way, uh, which is a little too much of a brain buster for me.
So you kind of
But
have like a bass in your guitar.
yeah, essentially, and that's how I did my first EP. Was I just finger picked all the root notes on the low strings and transposed it and put like a bass amp simulation on it to make it sound like a bass.
Wow, man, that's crazy. So basically, like what I like to do on here is like there's another podcast that we both listen to called the Cali Death Podcast, and I kind of
Absolutely.
like how they format it, and we're just an kind of an extension of that, our little community with the Mendocino County scene, and so as you know, I'm kind of influenced by that podcast as well, and it kind of inspired me to interview bands from around our area, to kind of tell their story. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that being said, kind of in that traditional Cali Death podcast format, I wanted to take it back to your beginnings, man. How did you very first get into music? Like even before, like what's your earliest memory of you actually being like, man, this is like I want to play music, or just being intrigued by music in general?
Oh man. So from what I can remember, uh, I think I was like two or three, um, and I would just whatever I can grab in my hand that simulated drumsticks, just beat the hell out of everything. According to my family, like especially at the dinner table, I'd be taking forks and spoons and just banging on the table, whatever I was hearing up here, and they'd have to be like, "Stop drumming on the table," like over and over again. Stop drumming on the table. So I remember my father. He brought me to this. I think this friend of his, and this dude had like a bunch of drum sets, just all different 4 piece, 5 piece, 6 piece, and they were all decked out and Like everything was well taken care of. And he let me jam around on some stuff. And I think that's when my father got me my first 5-piece pearl kit. It was like a fiberglass 5-piece pearl. And that was in the family, me playing drums on it. My older brother, Chuck, he showed me like my first beats and everything on the drums at like age 3, age 4. I
Wow.
can't really remember, but yeah, that long ago. And he would show me stuff he was learning in school because I think he was in like jazz band in like middle school and high school and stuff like that. And then my other older brother, Doug, he would show me stuff, but he would like incorporate like faster, faster, hit harder, hit faster, like, you know, trying to see how far I could go, so to speak, push the envelope. And I didn't know what he was doing at the time. I was just trying to keep up with my older brother, you know. So coming from circle of drummer brothers, they all had their different tastes in music as well. But my first taste in music was classic rock. That's what my father brought me up on. He had all this vinyl of you know, everything. Emerson, Lincoln Palmer, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Boston, ZZ Top, you name it. Like he had it all. And he also had VHS tapes of like music videos, you know, from like his era, and he had live performances. Like I always remember he had Allman Brothers Band live, like a tape, like on VHS that I would always watch. And it had other things like ZZ Top music videos on there, like in the beginning before the performance. And I remember being like 3 or 4, just going, "That is cool. Like that's what I want to do. Like I want to jam with other musicians and entertain, so to speak. Like make music videos." Like my brain wasn't, you know, like I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I like it, you know, and I kind of, you know, want to be a part of that. So music was always, I was always surrounded by music. My father, he is also a musician. He
Hmm.
plays what I would consider a forgotten instrument. He plays the accordion, and he shreds at that thing.
Wow.
You name any classic rock song or Christmas carol or whatever, he put it this way, he can shred his accordion better than I can shred my guitar.
Wow. And that's a
Um,
complex instrument, the accordion. I mean, there's a lot of buttons
yeah,
on there, and to keep that thing going and moving your fingers almost like guitar playing in a way, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah. And
gnarly.
then you're holding the bass notes with the other hand. And
Oh, wow.
you could tell he was definitely one with his instrument as well, because he's like not looking at it. He's just in that zone that we all chase, that zone
Yeah.
where you're just, you know, nothing matters. Like it's all in the moment.
It's just
So,
directly like mind to fingers, basically, like
yeah.
without even looking. Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember playing drums at a young age being very sensational, you know, so it was just something I always loved doing. And that drum set that we had was like in and out of my life at times, you know, because when you're a kid, you don't really know just yet, like exactly, you know, like music was always, it wasn't just like background noise. I always noticed music, like always try to pick apart the rhythms, whether it was Saturday Night by Elton John or Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin or,
Nice.
um, you know, a lot of music.
And
And
there's a lot of complexities going on with you know, a lot of that early stuff that people don't realize. I mean, there's some serious complex technical stuff going on with a lot of that early stuff, harmonies and just the way how
yeah,
it's constructed. You know, I mean,
yeah, and the moods that it created too. Like I wasn't understanding how it was being done, but a lot of it, like, you know, you just get zoned into it, like especially as a kid, like um, it creates moods. That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to say. Like it starts creating emotions that um, just resonate. If that makes any sense.
yeah, totally. And so you're picking up on this stuff. You're kind of learning drums. This is like, you know, what, around age 5 or 6 or something like that, or
5, 6, 7. And then around 8, I started noticing my older brothers listening to like different tastes in music. Like my oldest brother, who got me started on drums, he started getting into digital composers like Nine Inch Nails and Aphex Twin and stuff like that. And then my other older brother, he was starting to get into the metal side of things. So that's how
Ooh.
I got introduced to metal. Was my older brother, he would somehow run into VHS, or not VHS, excuse me, cassette tapes of, like, I think he had a Metallica Black Album,
Oh,
and
nice.
then I think we like circulated that for like a week or two on the little boombox stereo that we had, and I just remember being blown away at that production, for,
Yeah.
like, especially for Lars's kit. I'm like, dude, those drums sound huge and sound like cannons, blah blah blah. Why don't my drums sound like that? Not understanding that it was all studio magic. So
The best microphones in the world and stuff like that.
right. So, but then he started getting into like the newer metal side of stuff, like Korn and Slipknot. And so growing up, I had those, older brother influences on top of my dad's classic rock. Um, and then somewhere around, I want to say my last days of being 11, going into 12, I had this across the street neighbor who skated with my older brother, and he
Mm.
had this knockoff like Gibson, like Les Paul. It wasn't an Epiphone. It didn't have a brand, so to speak. So uh, I was like, "Can I try your guitar?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." So I just started noodling around, like trying to hear notes in songs like by ear, because learning drums, that's how kind of it was either learning it by ear or monkey see monkey do, since
Mm.
I'm a visual learner.
Okay.
So uh, I just messed around with that for, I don't know, probably 2 3 years with guitar, while I was also being heavily influenced by like all the metal and digital composing that my older brothers were listening to, and trying to duplicate that on my own kit. Um, and then I think when it became something I really wanted to do was somewhere in middle school. I started trying to influence my friends to play instruments. I had one other friend who was a guitar player, um, and he had like a jam space in his garage. His family actually like constructed that in the garage for him. So we
Killer.
kind of had like one of those like young preteen kind of garage bands going on, and that was a lot of fun. And we influenced a couple other people to like try to like start this band with us. Like, we're gonna start a band. That's what we want to do. Um,
That's awesome.
so meanwhile, I'm trying to hone my craft on drums and just practicing what I was hearing on guitar, which was like on the side of the new metal stuff. There was also Deftones, because that's what my across the street neighbor was into. He was into a lot of
Oh.
Deftones, so I learned a lot of Deftones material from him.
Oh, damn.
Um, and then my freshman year in high school, I met this cat, Jordan Richardson. He was into, I want to say, the more proper metal side of things. I would notice he come to school with his Ibanez 6 string,
Mm.
and he was always wearing like Pantera and Metallica and Slayer. And um, I remember not really having that good of social skills in high school, but I was always like, I need to be friends with this dude because he's a guitar player and I'm a drummer. And um,
And he wears the cool shirt, so there's got to be
yeah,
something that's up with him.
one of those stories where like it starts with a shirt and you just become friends with them.
Yeah, totally.
So we had a mutual friend, Travis Parker, who was also really good at drums, and he was also really good at the guitar, and he was also very well versed in death metal vocals. Like, this dude at like 13 or 14 could manipulate his voice to sound like Glenn Benton or
Oh,
Corpse
damn.
Grinder, or yeah, like he was the death metal guy. So him and Jordan started like taking me under their wing, going like, no, this is the good metal you want to listen to. Like, yeah, Slipknot's got sick drums and stuff like that, but this is where all the real, like, stay on this side.
Yeah.
Is what they were saying. They're like, this is Pantera, and I'm like, okay, where has this band been my entire life? Like, so I
You're
got
like
heavily into
they're
Pantera.
basically showing you the stuff that kind of like influenced Slipknot, so to speak.
I guess, and I had no idea because at that time we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have social media, we had just the magazines that they were pumping out and whatever MTV was pumping out. So
Oh yeah, yep.
I'm
Remember
pretty
all
sure,
that.
and I was obviously looking in the wrong places because I'm like, they're like, dude, Pantera's like big like Metallica. I'm like, I've never heard of it. I don't know why. I don't see it on TV. It's kind
Yep.
of, and they're like, oh no, dude, you got to dig for it. Um, so they had this other cat, Ryan, who was a bass player, and I would bounce between their houses like as a teenager, like, okay, show me stuff, and they're like, okay, yeah, like try to learn this. So me and Jordan, we first jammed because he was like, so you're a drummer. Travis tells me you're a drummer. Come over and jam with us. And so I sit behind Travis's kit, and he's just like, "So what do you know any Pantera songs or Metallica songs?" I'm like, "I know one Metallica song. It's because I have it on a VHS, like a live performance." He's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's Fade to Black." So we jammed out Fade to Black, and
Oh, sick! I love that song.
so right then and there, we kind of looked at each other like, "Yeah, we're gonna hang out like from now on."
That's
So
sick.
eventually, he was like, "Hey, I got these other two dudes, guitar player and bass player. They're looking for a drummer. Let's go hang out with them and try you out." And that's how I met those dudes. We wrote two songs in maybe 1 or 2 days. I can't remember, but it just clicked. Like we knew that there was something special in the that bedroom
Nice.
when we
And
first
what was
jammed.
the? Did you guys have a name for the band at that time, or?
It eventually became Evisceration.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yes, that first band. And we wrote a few songs, played like a local talent show, started getting big enough to start throwing our own shows around Lake County. And that's how we eventually uh, met the Mendocino bands. We eventually, I don't know who booked the slot, but they got us at one of those white Shakespeare tent shows, one of those
Okay.
festivals.
Yep.
And that was actually a memorable day for me because I somehow forgot all my cymbals
Yep. Yep.
to my drums, and I asked Dean from Goreskin Coffin when he was playing in Hallucinate. I
That's
asked
right.
him. I nervously went and asked him, like, "Hey man, can I use your cymbals?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's fine, sure, totally." So that performance got us hooked up, like meeting you when you were in Mummification and Hallucinate, and then we started playing those
That's cool,
shows, and
man.
that's
Dean is such a nice guy, and I
yeah,
mean, you know how it is as a drummer with the whole cymbals thing, man. I mean, drummers are weird about their cymbals. Like it seems like the most money goes into cymbals, so it's like,
yeah,
but Dean is just such a cool fucking dude, He just
yeah. He
sure, bro.
saved my ass that day for sure,
Wow,
because
that's
I'm
awesome,
like,
man.
dude, we did not just drive all the way out here to play just because I don't have cymbals. So that's how I met Dean. Was
Wow,
him actually being like, I've been here before. Yes, you can use
totally.
my symbols.
And you guys crushed it too, man. You guys had a sick set, if I remember
that
right.
was that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think that was my first time being mic'd up,
Okay, yeah,
having mics on the kit. I couldn't hear myself, but it was still a sound change for sure.
nice.
So and unbeknownst to me, that's when we land that show with Mummification with you guys. They're like, "Yeah, we're
Oh,
bringing them
okay.
out to Lakeport." And I'm like, "Oh no." Okay, yeah, sure. We're gonna bring them out to our venue, our little bowling venue that has uh, no air conditioning, no nothing. Like this is great. So yeah, then we played that show with you guys, and uh, that ins- uh, I don't know if you want to talk about that incident
Oh
that
yeah, it's
happened that
fine, man.
night.
Yeah, fine, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I actually wasn't. I can't remember where I was, but I wasn't in the showroom. I think I was using the bathroom, and I came back, and that's when I noticed there was an ambulance or two, and
Yep.
everybody
I had
was.
passed out, man. I was drumming for Mummification, and fucking I don't know if it was the ventilation there or what. I just remember it being really hot, super hot. I think it was a summertime show, and
Yeah.
I felt queasy as I was drumming, and I ended a song and fucking barfed all over my snare drum, like just
Oh man.
splat all over it. And you know, Adam looks back, he's like, "Next song?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's keep going," you know. And played the whole next song with just barf exploding off the snare into my face. And
My
then
goodness.
into that song, I stood up to kind of like I think I needed to catch my breath basically, and I stood up to kind of just take like a deep inhalation. Boom, I
Yeah.
went down. I passed out, man. And next thing I knew, I guess some of the members of the crowd had carried me outside, and there was an ambulance there. And I just thought to myself, I can't do this drumming shit, man. It's just, yeah, I was always a strong armor. You know, I never had the finesse of getting, you know, the wrists all perfect with the bounce and, you know, stuff
Oh
like that.
yeah.
So I would just flex my arms and just fucking, just, you know, kill it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I just winded the fuck out of myself. And, I knew I needed to figure it out. You know, I didn't want to let Mummification down. You know, I didn't want to let, you know, the rest of the guys down and Adam and all that. But coming back to that evisceration show that you guys had played with us, and also that show, I just remember thinking, man, that guy Sam, dude, he was a fucking sick drummer. Like that guy is badass. I saw and heard the potential in you from the first time I saw you, bro. I was like, this guy is sick. Like he's got it. He's got the finesse. He's got, you know, fast feet and fucking, and you know, if anybody can do this band justice, you know, around this area, if there's anybody who can hop on the drums and do this, it would be you. You know, it'd be Sam. So,
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
man, you know, so and it's like when you said you were down to do it, you know, because I mean, basically came to you and I was like, Sam, man, but fucking, you know, can you fill in for Mummification, man? I can't do this anymore. Can you be the drummer, you know? And you're
That's
like, absolutely. You know, I was like, holy fuck, man. Like, just made me feel so good that you could step in and do that.
Funny story about that too was at the time my band was kind of going through like a little funk. Like we kind of just like weren't jamming, and I think I was a senior in high school, and I think things were kind of like on the down for me. And then I get this phone call, and it's Adam Weber.
Nice.
And I didn't believe it was Adam at first. I thought it was like one of my friends like messing around on me. So I pick it up, and they're like, "Hey, is this Sam?" I'm like, "Yeah." Who's this? They're like, "This is Adam Weber of Mummification." I'm like, boom. He calls back, and he's like, "Hey, so no, this is really Adam. You want to come try out for us?" And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let me see what I can do. And I think the first tryout was on his Gretsch kit that he has, and I'm like, dude, I can bring my drums over, and he's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So I think I learned 2 or 3 songs that first tryout.
Wow.
Which was a lot of fun. I think because I hadn't played death metal, and I wasn't really too versed on a whole lot of variations of the blast beat. I was just like I was good on the standard blast because me and our guitar player Jordan, he was putting death metal, like just feeding me death metal. So the first time I pulled a blast beat, I was trying to play Hammered Smash Face.
Nice. Perfect choice for the first blast beat, man.
Yeah,
that's the one.
It did not go well. I mean, I had the rhythm down, but as soon as it came time for that, I think I remember like just going for it, and I couldn't last. But I kept trying and eventually started learning to incorporate less forearm and more wrist, but
Nice.
there still wasn't, my technique wasn't proper still. So trying out for Mummification, I had some death metal experience, so to speak. Um, but it seems they liked it. I liked it
Oh
enough
yeah.
to for me to come back with my drum set. Adam was like, "Is this all your drums?" I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Okay, cool, because you can't take them home ever." I'm like, "Why? Why?" And he's like, "Oh well, because you're stuck with us if you want to be." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, no, this is crazy." Uh, okay, and he's like, "Yeah, we have a show coming up, the Northwest Death Fest. Are you gonna be able to prepare for that? Because that's going to be the show that decides whether or not picking on the younger guy, like feeding him shit, like prepare.
And
When
that was the show with Cannibal Corpse, right?
no, that was
Oh, okay.
Sadist Obituary on the main stage. It was
Right.
at
Okay. That's right.
the Phoenix Underground in Seattle,
Yep.
and it was Severed and Deeds on the underground stage,
Oh yeah. Okay.
which that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
That
That's a
night
classic
was
lineup, man.
an incredible night for me.
I mean,
For
dude, to have your first show with Mummification, like playing a show with
Yeah,
Deeds of Flesh and Severed Savior, Obituary. I mean, that's insane, dude.
yeah,
I mean,
and it was my first real show because I had never been on a professional stage before that. So when I heard that Deeds was going to be there, I'll rewind back a little bit. Somewhere when I was 14 or 15, I was introduced to Deeds of Flesh by my boy Aaron, the first band guitar player that I tried to start in my life. He had a burnt copy of Reduced to Ashes,
mm,
and we would always he moved to Vacaville sometime in 8th grade, and we kept in touch. So every time we'd see each other after a month's time, we go, "Have you heard this? Have you heard that? Have you heard this? Have you studied that?" Well, one time he was like, "Have you heard of Deeds of Flesh?" And I'm
wow.
like, "No." So he pops on From Deuce to Ashes, and first hearing Mike Hamilton come in with that triplet blast beat, I was like, I need to go practice. This is fucking ridiculous. And I didn't know that it was only 3 guys because it sounded like 5 or 6.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So I was heavily impressed by what Eric was doing, what Jacoby was doing, and especially, as a drummer, what Mike Hamilton was doing. I'm like, dude, and he tells me, he's like, dude, I saw this band live recently. That drummer is one-footed blasting.
Wow. Yep.
I'm like, are
I
you
remember
serious?
seeing him. Yeah. And he was all about the 1 foot, and it was mechanical and perfect. And I mean, he was like church for all of us, it was like going to
Yeah.
school watching him.
So when we were gearing up to play that Northwest Death Fest, I took it pretty seriously to try to hone my craft at getting these songs down, and I didn't have much time left. I actually my first weekend in Willits, trying to learn this material, all we had was that Ruins of Blood album. So all I could do when I wasn't behind the kit was be at Adam's house with his headphones and just sit there and just air drum to it. Just get the beat down, worry about making it sound like me later
Totally.
or sound like something, where it would make more sense for me.
For sure.
So that show was it was because I hadn't played any crowd, and it was my first time on the road, and I didn't want to disappoint the guys, especially seeing that they were on Brutalized Records, they were an actual business. So being 17, um, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. I'm like, I gotta be in this band. I need to be in this band because I knew I was surrounded by musicians who had a lot more experience that I wanted to eventually know. Because during that time, Mike Williams, dude, he took me under his wing, and he's like Jason Becker, Ron Jarzenbeck,
Oh, nice. Yeah. He listens to
Cool
the good stuff.
Vadas. Yeah, he started, Jordan had from my previous band, he showed me Necrophagus in between the Buried and Me, but then Mikey steps in and he's like, dude, Spawn of Possession, Severed Savior, there you go study, have fun. Then there was Adam, who was taking me on the more like older stuff. He was like, here you go, Possessed, Gorgoroth, yeah, all the stuff he likes. Then Alex, he was showing me what he liked and all the other stuff that wasn't death metal that he liked, like all the shred stuff like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. So it was like being in school every day, jamming with those dudes. And then eventually we play a show with you guys, and that's when I meet, officially Luke and Lauren, and hang out with you guys, start picking your brains about, music you guys were into, and especially after watching Luke play drums for the first time when I was in Evisceration, I'm like, I gotta talk to this guy about drums. How am I gonna make that happen? So eventually I'd start going to Luke and just start I'm like, okay, you're a stranger, but we're gonna talk about technique. Nice. I want to know how you get so fast and how you get so precise. So anytime that I could, I would try to pick Luke's brain, and yeah. So eventually you start meeting the other bands that were playing shows with us, like the band Autonomous. Back then they were not Area 7, Definition Unknown. That's what they were.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Definition Unknown. And then I meet the Hallucinate gang, and they start teaching me about death and cynic and
killer,
all that stuff. And hanging out with the boys from Autonomous, back then Definition Unknown, they started showing me a lot of the upcoming San Francisco Bay Area death metal. They were like, have you heard of Anomalous? And I'm like, no. So then they showed me Anomalous, and then that became my new favorite band.
Oh yeah.
And then they were showing me Rings of Saturn and Fallujah, and
nice.
So I had all this melting pot of just music just circulating every day while I'm trying to learn this Mummification material, and then learn their new material that they were working on at the time. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Those days, I miss those days.
Did you guys ever record any of that?
Quite often.
Did you guys ever record any of that newer Mummification material, or?
We did some pre-production stuff.
Nice.
I don't know where it's floating around, but I imagine either Williams has it or.
Oh yeah, I bet Mike has it.
I'm not sure,
yeah.
But yeah, we did do a whole lot of pre-production, and we were almost finished.
Wow.
I think we had maybe one song or two songs left to finish before we were going to start talking about studio time for that album.
Yeah, because I remember hearing some of that new Mummification material at that time, and it was pretty fast, gnarly, brutalizing stuff, man.
It was.
I remember it getting really difficult. Crazy. Yeah,
it was difficult for sure. Yeah, it's hard on the muscles, and that's when I started. After hanging out with Mike Hamilton at Northwest Death Fest, that's when I started trying to take care of my body.
Yep.
A lot more, because he was like, yeah, dude, I exercise and ride bikes, and just take better care of your body, and get behind the kit and refine your technique.
Yeah. So yeah, because playing drums it's a lot like jogging miles and miles. I mean, you're just working your whole entire system pretty much.
Yeah, a whole bunch of sweat off the brow. I thought about wearing those 80s headbands from time to time to keep the sweat and hair out of my face.
And you know what's crazy, man, coming back to the Severed Savior thing is like, Severed Savior was a band that influenced us all, and after my time and your time drumming with Mummification, Mike, the bass player, did kind of like a reformation of the Mummification thing for one of the Las Vegas Death Fests.
I saw that.
Troy from Severed Savior was playing drums for Mummification, man.
Yeah,
so, I mean, it's kind of cool that it had Troy, in the ranks at that time. It just adds to the coolness and the alumni factor of Mummification. Pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that was
Definitely.
badass. I wish I could have been there to see that.
Does he have that on video,
I
Mike?
am
Or
not sure. I'm not sure. I think I tried a couple of times to search that on YouTube, but it's nowhere.
yeah, that'd be a trip to see, man. Um, so then how did you, after you were doing the Mummification thing, how did you hook up with the Ontogeny guys? Because that's pretty much the part of Anomalous, which is one of the bands you were digging on.
Yeah, yeah. So, sometime after Mummification was on their hiatus, I moved back out to Lake County sometime, and I knew there was a handful of musicians who, during the Mummification days, were still in high school, and they were developing their craft. And it was two kids, Eno and Mike, and they were one guitar player and one drummer. And Mike was an aspiring drummer, and he is still to this day one of the best drummers I know. This
Wow.
kid is. I hope he starts playing a lot more, because he's his own unique drummer personality, and he can do it. That's the craziest thing.
Oh, wow.
But so they hit me up and they're like, "Hey, we're like practicing like some death metal and stuff like that. You want to come check it out?" And I'm like, "Sure. What are you practicing?" They're like, "Oh, we're doing like Vital Remains, Cannibal Corpse, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Okay, go on." So I went and checked them out, and right there in front of me, they jam out "Dechristianized" by Vital Remains, and I was heavily blown away. And they were like, we're looking for like a second guitar player to kind of complete our sound. And I'm like, well, I play drums in bands. Like, I'm not really a guitar player, but I'm trying to start a band of my own. If you guys want to help out, they're like, yeah, sure, okay, cool. So I found myself writing drum parts, like, because I was trying to start a project and have everyone else be other instruments but the drums, and it ended up not working out. Our buddy Travis, who was our singer, he's like, he's hearing something that I wrote together on guitar, and I was like, yeah, you guys can jam it. It'll be easy, blah blah blah. And he's like, why don't you jam it? Because we already got a drummer here. We got Mike. So why don't you just play guitar for the band? And I'm like, okay, sure, I guess. And so we wrote like 4 songs, and then they booked our first show on my birthday,
Oh,
on
wow.
on my 19th birthday, 19th or 20th, I can't remember. So we played that for a show, and I think it was right then and there that, I mean, I was already serious about guitar, like in my upbringing. From when I started, I would study like theory and study, other people's songs like Jason Becker. And of course, at the time, I couldn't figure out how to play any like the San Francisco Bay Area uh, death metal that was coming out, because there was no tablature for it at the time, and there wasn't really no
Yeah.
playthroughs.
Yep.
So, and every now and then I would learn Mummification tunes through Mikey or through Alex or through Adam. They would, teach me some stuff, and I'm like, I'm glad I'm not the guitar player at all for this band. These riffs hurt. So,
Yeah.
so when I started writing my own material, I grew a huge appreciation for the 12 Notes of the Universe, and started having fun writing something that wasn't drums. Uh, and strangely enough, people liked it. It was starting to, become a cohesive project, and that
And when
project
you and
was,
when you have that drum knowledge behind your guitar playing, it kind of puts everything rhythmatically,
yeah.
syncopation and all that stuff. You understand how a song should flow when you have that drum knowledge, man.
And it's strange because that's kind of how I play guitar. Is I'm playing drums, like, but
Nice.
it's just it's on a fretboard that you have to
Right.
do this with, So, but it's all percussive, and it's all rhythm. So yeah, it's scales and chords and modes and all that, but mostly it's just rhythm and just
Totally.
deciding where the pattern is. Um, so I started. We booked somebody. I'm pretty sure it was my buddy Jordan. But we made a demo, and he showed that to Chaz from Solasunder, and Chaz from
Oh,
Solasunder really liked it. So Chaz got in touch with us, unbeknownst to me. I can't remember where I was or what I was doing, but all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we got a show with Solasunder." I'm like, "When and where?" They're like, "It's on a Sunday in Monterey, and it's like a month from now." I'm like, how did we grab that?" Like that's insane. So fast forward, we play the show with Solasunder, and we get there, and it was actually kind of, this is one of the funny stories that I have. We show up there, we got with all our gear, and Solasunder guys show up, and of course, first thing I'm like, dude, I've been listening to Solasunder since I was 14, like all starstruck, you know. So Nate
they're a
walks
great
up, he's
band,
like,
man. I love Soul Asunder. Awesome
absolutely,
band, dude.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time seeing that Hate Fueled Anger music video that was circulating in the MySpace uh, in like 2004,
Yep,
2005, I want to say.
yep.
So, so yeah, I knew who they were big time, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's go meet them. So I meet Chaz, and I meet Nate, meet Micah and Keith, and I'm like, dude, this is sick. I'm hanging out with Soul Asunder. This is a trip. So Nate's wearing an Anomalous shirt, and
Oh
I'm like,
shit.
and I had no idea who he was. I'm like, uh, I can't remember what I said. I think I said something like, "You're lucky you're the guitar player of Soul Asunder, or I would steal your shirt while you're asleep," or something like that. Like, that's my favorite band right there.
Oh wow.
And he's like, "Oh, well, that's me. I'm the other guitar player. I'm Nate." And time stood still, and I shit my pants.
I bet. Yeah,
So
man.
I'm
Wow.
like, "Oh fuck, dude! Like, this is insane." Okay, so then there was like double pressure. Like, now you're not about to be second headliner for Soul Asunder. Now the guitar player of Anomalous is here. So
And
yeah, be
those
on your
dudes are
shit.
like they're like the next, couple levels up from Mummification as far as like, all the shit they're doing, like
Oh,
technically and
dude.
everything. I mean,
Yeah,
that music is like it was ahead of its time, in my opinion.
absolutely.
Ahead
I
of its
remember.
time. They
Yeah,
were one of the first to do the crazy fucking, gravity blast and,
yeah,
stuff that a lot of bands are, mirroring nowadays.
yeah, yeah. So we played our set there. They played their set, and then afterwards we're hanging out. They're complimenting my guitar tone. I'm complimenting theirs, and Nate's like, "Dude, give me your demo." I was like, "Sure." So next day, I get home from Monterey, and he messages me on MySpace, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're busy with your band, but would you want to play for Ontogeny?" And I'm like,
Wow.
"Dude, my band's gonna be so pissed." But yeah, no. So I tried doing both those projects at the same time. I learned a lot from uh, those Ontogeny tryouts.
I bet.
And rehearsing with that band was like nothing. It was unreal. Like, just how tight Nate, at the time their bass player Sam, and Keith were. Like,
Keith is an insane drummer, man. That
dude,
guy. I mean,
yeah,
we watched him because we did a tour with Soul Asunder and Lecherous Nocturne back in the day, and so I got to watch Keith play every night. That was what I liked the band as a whole, of course, but one of the things
yeah,
I really enjoyed was watching Keith. And that guy, such a nice dude. I
yeah,
mean, you'd never even know that he plays that caliber of brutality by his attitude, because he is
yeah,
just such a nice guy, always willing to
yeah,
help you out, set up your gear. I mean, anything he can do to, just a giving dude. And watching him play, he just had this incredible jazzy, like, just finesse about him. Nothing seemed too hard for him to play. He was always just in the zone.
yeah, dude. He makes it effortless. It's insane, and just how he moves like into it too, like the way he flows. Um, yeah, Nate's incredibly lucky to have a drummer like that, dude.
Yeah.
He's just insane. I remember seeing his drumming, the first being blown away when I was 14 or 15 during the Solo Thunder days, and then I get to the Ontogeny rehearsal, and then find out that's the guys from Soul Asunder are also in Ontogeny. So I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. I'm in a band with Soul Asunder now. Like, this is
and
insane.
they're both crazy bands. So, I mean, how do these
Right.
guys even have the brain capacity for both of those bands? I mean, that's
Oh,
just
dude, and
nuts, man.
the riffs that Nate writes are on a there's something else. Because I mean, I learning two or three of his riffs opened up like 20 doors for songwriting for me.
Yeah.
But then some of his riffs, he actually opened up my eyes on how important it is for the band to be really cohesive and tight. There was one riff he showed me where he was alternate picking this arpeggio, and
Oh, wow.
I was trying to sweep or economy pick it or circular pick it, whatever. And
Mhm.
he was like, "You want to try to do it like this, like the way I'm doing it?" I'm like, "It's not clean like that when I do it." And he goes, "Okay, so practice it because this needs to sound tight. Like this needs to sound cohesive and tight. We can't. I don't want anything to sound loose." He wasn't. He was just driven for a very specific professional sound, and I understood that right away. So while I'm also trying to deal with this distance, I'm trying not to disappoint somebody's vision. So I learned a lot going on right then and there.
I bet, man. Yeah, that guy, he is an
Uh oh.
insane guitar player. I mean, when you're saying, that he's an incredible riff writer, he really is, man. I mean, that like Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse has been spotted wearing Ontogeny shirts. So I mean, this guy is definitely a riff master for sure. All right, and if you're just tuning in, welcome back to the Mendo Metal Podcast, episode 4 with Sam Lanyon. When we last left off, we were talking about basically how Nate from Ontogeny kind of made an impression on you as a guitar player, and you're talking about how you kind of got integrated with them and working with them.
Yeah. So yeah, those rehearsals were a real eye opener, real kind of kick in the pants of uh, the musicianship level, and um, yeah, he opened my eyes to a lot of things, like to listen for like different picking timbres and stuff like that. Because there was one riff where I was struggling, he could alternate pick it. It was like an arpeggio kind of riff going back up and down on the lower strings.
Oh
Well, I
wow,
couldn't. I was trying to sweep pick it, and he's like, okay, why don't you try to practice it this way? This way it sounds, more tight and more dialed in, and so that opened my eyes to a lot of things.
yeah, that's definitely a different
Yeah,
approach to
those were the
playing
bits, but unfortunate.
arpeggios.
Yeah. That's how I because that's how I normally played arpeggios. I'm not really a huge fan of alternate picking everything now. He showed me some pretty sick techniques that open like 10,000 doors to songwriting for me.
Wow.
Just learning his material, and yeah, it was pretty. His material, his guitar playing is just it's unreal. Uh, that
Yeah, it's
dude.
another level. I mean, even Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse has been spotted wearing Ontogeny T-shirts. So I mean that's
Yeah.
about the caliber of the riffage that he comes up with, man. To catch somebody's attention like that, I mean, those are some serious
Yeah.
riffs he's laying down.
Yeah, I really wish it was able to continue to work out too, because he was also interested in what I was working on, for the project I was in prior to joining Ontogeny. So it was starting to get interesting, but at the time I didn't really have things together. I didn't have a license, so making it out to San Francisco
Yeah, that's quite a drive, man, to
was
make it all the way down there.
was a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Um, But yeah, he was also gracious enough to show me before it was released the new omnivalent material that they were tracking,
Oh
and
wow.
I just remember sitting on on that sofa in his studio. Just there was another kick in the pants. I was like, dude, I thought the shit I was writing was pretty sick, but this is unreal.
Well, I
Like
mean, it's kind of like
this is
that
a
for
whole
every
nother level.
musician. It's like you because you're from your own head point of view, and then when you hear something else, it's like you're hearing like a different viewpoint. So it's always I often do that where I'll go to shows and
Yeah.
I'll see a
Yeah. And I
band
was
play
also,
and I'm just like, fuck, I can't do that.
yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a good feeling being in that studio that he has or had downstairs. I just looked around like, dude, this is ridiculously sick. Like it's, there's you're comfortable and this dude can totally do whatever he wants
Totally.
whenever he wants. I'm like, man, I wish I had this set up. So yeah, and also uh, learning that style of Bay Area death metal too. It was definitely challenging. It was something different. It was great because my brain was like, this is where you want to be with these musicians who are always pushing themselves and uh, always doing something different, uh, but uh, keeping it to their ability and their style of writing, so to speak.
That's cool,
Um,
man.
yeah, yeah, those were fun times for sure. Fun times.
And after you stopped working with them, is that when you decided you were going to start doing your own like solo type stuff as the Sam Lanyon project, or how did all of that come
Yeah,
about?
yeah. So I had a couple other projects in the works that I really wanted to do, um, and I'll be honest about that. I was kind of hitting rock bottom. I was drinking heavily,
Totally, man. We
so
all go through
there was
that,
a period in music due to severe alcoholism. So yeah, and it was bad. So those other two projects that I was trying to work on, like they uh, they failed. So due to my poor decision making during inebriation. So I'll be honest about that.
Hey,
Um,
man, there's no shame in
so
that.
then I eventually, yeah, yeah. I mean,
I've been there
it is what it is.
myself,
It's in the
dude.
past. No, yeah, it's all good. So I kind of went through a period of time where, after I met my wife, she helped me fix the laptop and she got me my first 8 string. It was pretty dope that she just went
Wow.
out of her way. Yeah, she went out of her way and was just like, you need to sober up and you need to get back on your feet and put yourself back on the map. And, just, with the technology you've been telling me about, you could save up, put all of it together yourself and, you know, sh- let people know that you're still playing music because I see that you're still writing, you can,
Yeah, and it's nice to have
let's make
somebody
this
like
happen.
that that's
So
driving you forward and
she's
that
super
keeps you grounded.
right, being incredibly supportive and actually caring, so that was also a huge eye opener as well. So yeah, so I kind of realized that uh I kind of have it's kind of shallow, it's going to sound shallow, but I have like a creative difference problem. And I think during that time I had a specific vision that I wanted to go for, and uh I didn't I guess I wasn't mature enough to realize it at the time. um, Trying to start the projects prior to that. I wanted everyone, to pitch in, but I guess I hoped it was going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Um, so then I was like, okay, why don't we, uh, try to maintain friendships with everybody and just work by yourself, just whatever it is that's up there and also here, um, just express it when do it silently. I guess like I I tend to notice about mine about other people that when I talk about it, there's less doing. So I try not to speak about what I'm working on, so that like when I get ready to say, hey, something's coming, when it does, I'll feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, totally. Well, and that goes the same for, probably a lot of artists who paint, as well. It's kind of like, you're not ready to unveil that art piece until, you've got every stroke
Mm-hmm.
and every little tidbit in there, to complete the painting.
Yeah, and so doing it by myself, I started getting. At first, I was using tune track plugins like Easy Mix and all that stuff, um, and it was just guitar, bass, and drums when I started releasing my own material by myself. Um, so I liked what I was releasing, but at the same time, I was like, this is feeling empty, and I started comparing my masters to other bands' masters, and getting extremely disappointed, to say the least. Because I mean, Easy Mix is great. Tune track products are wonderful,
Wow.
but they don't deliver the full magic of what really goes on, with an engineer.
I see.
So I started noticing. I'm like, okay, there's got to be something to make this that I'm not doing, that's going to make this sound more cohesive. So, but I realized that I released my first EP. So the first thing I noticed that was missing was something to enhance uh, the pictures I was trying to paint, basically,
Nice.
with the Sam Lanyon stuff. Um, and I noticed it once I heard about Spitfire Audio, that it was just more instruments. I'm like, okay, it sounds killer with two guitar tracks, a bass track, a lead track, and a drum track. Like, that's cool. Maybe some ambience effects, like heavy reverb and delays, to create certain atmospheres with the guitar, bass, and drums. But there seemed to have been like certain rules that kind of started popping up in my head. So writing music by myself
Yeah.
eventually
But
started becoming a bit shot, just bland. And I'm like, okay, this is what I love to do, but it feels like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. It's expecting something to change, if that makes any sense.
totally.
So I heard about Spitfire Audio because I saw bands in the gent genre starting to use plugins, and I'm like, wait, there's VST plugins for orchestras? Like, okay, I got to check this out.
Ha,
So I
wow.
checked I checked out Spitfire Audio, even though there's other ones, but everybody was ranting and raving about Spitfire Audio. Um, so I checked it out, and I realized it was basically, in a nutshell, the Superior Drummer 3 or 2, or at the time, of orchestral instruments. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, this is going to get interesting. So let's see what this sounds like. So once I started messing around with it, that's when the real ideas for the SL1 EP started coming out.
And I love that SL1
And it was
release, by the way,
it,
man.
it
That
was
that
that.
thing is sick. You really did just a stellar job
Thank
on
you.
it. In fact,
Thank
I
you.
want to try to see if I can play some of it through the computer here, if you don't mind. I don't know how it'll
Sure.
sound
Go ahead.
through these speakers or whatever, but it'd be kind of fun just to hear it for a second because Dude, that is some intense guitar playing, man. I mean, that's nuts. I don't know if people will be able to hear that at home or not, but that's amazing, man. Yeah, man.
Okay.
That's just incredible stuff you're doing there, dude. Gnarly. I'm blown away by the sound of it.
Thank you. Yeah. What I was saying was the Spitfire audio stuff really helped enhance that EP. Before it was even an idea to release a package of songs like that. Um, I was really doing more research on the company. So a lot of those, a lot of sections in that EP, um, they took like 51 takes.
Wow.
Yeah. I kept doing it over and over again, especially on that last section. Yeah, that one took a minute.
Wow.
Um,
That's cool, man, that you were able to take the time though and not have to spend a bunch of studio money, in some, studio somewhere and all that. You were able to take your time, make it come out the way you wanted, and it's got a very perfected sound to it, man.
Yeah, I wish thank you. I greatly appreciate that. I'm glad I got a good response out of it. I wish I would have spent more time in mixing and mastering it though. Yeah, I mean the production.
I've heard some bands go to studios and not get a mix or a master that sounds as good as that, even from a professional studio, dude. I think what you did sounds okay. Pretty gnarly, dude. It sounds great to me,
Thank you.
Yeah,
that some of those songs took like 6 months to write too.
Wow. Have you shopped that to any record labels or anything like that?
No, I'm the worst promoter. I'm actually, it's weird, like for being somebody who takes that amount of time to, put something together for people to hear. I'm not really I don't really pump the stuff out enough to get attention, and I don't think I have the, I don't know, to get the attention of a label. For one, I'm doing it it's a studio project. I would love to play it live, but
that'd be awesome.
To for one, and it's probably going to sound very shallow. I don't think that is a reality that's going to come to fruition. Because for one, I don't want to be that person that tells a musician how they're going to play their instrument.
Gotcha.
And so, in a way, if it were to happen live, the musicians would have to enjoy the music enough to want to play it live, if that makes any sense.
Or you can always try it with putting your drums through the speaker or whatever, maybe like Insidious Discrepancy or something like that.
I thought about that from time to time. I really did. And I think a couple of things happened. One, I started hearing horror stories about laptops on stage, like, shutting down, and
yeah.
So I don't want to be in that position, and then the real people who are performing on stage coming to me, like being like, you got to figure that out.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So, yeah, I did a couple performances at our local town pub, the Shawnee pub, where it was just me playing embryonic songs with a drum machine that I had programmed. I didn't I had to push the buttons and stuff to make the drum beats.
Yeah.
Press the little drum pads and shit, and made some tracks. And it's funny that you're talking about the laptop crashing, man, because I had the same fear And I actually, instead of playing it through my laptop, I ended up recording the drums into my 16-track recording unit.
Shit.
And I just
There you
brought
go.
that whole recording unit to the show because I was so
Yeah.
paranoid about my laptop, man. So
Straight into the
yeah,
board.
I don't blame you,
Absolutely.
bro.
Yeah. And another thing I was also scared of was like, okay, so say you're playing in a small venue that doesn't really have that great of a sound setup. You know, like the room, they don't really have the room figured out. There's no like, you know, sound engineer. I don't want people to have a lesser experience than what they're going to have, you know, when they listen to it on headphones. So,
Right. Yeah, that's true.
because nobody wants to sound paper thin. Everyone wants to sound huge, right? You know,
Totally.
especially when you're engineering it yourself, you know, you know, to get your vision across. And if you're gonna, you know, take the time to set up and, you know, try to entertain people with it live, um, yeah, you're at least someone like me, unfortunately, being, you know, a bit spoiled, thinking like, no, if it's gonna be live, it's gonna be pro,
Yeah,
which,
totally.
yeah.
Have you heard that band from they're from the Bay Area? They're called Captured by Robots.
Mm-mm.
Dude, this guy who he you know knows animatronics, like builds these robots.
Oh shit.
And his whole band, it literally it's like him and like six different robots, and they're all playing guitar and bass and everything, dude. It's
No
insane.
shit.
Yeah, it's called Captured by Robots. He actually just finished a tour a while back with Nile. So it's
Oh
like,
fuck.
dude, this guy is a trip. You got to check him out, Sam, because I think somebody like you would appreciate what he's doing, man, because he's got robots play,
I'm gonna
you
write that
know.
down.
Yeah, man, it's pretty intense, dude. I couldn't believe
Absolutely.
what I was
I
hearing
gotta see
or
that.
watching. Yeah, pretty nuts.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Uh, yeah.
Uh, so now
Capture.
yep, captured by robots. Recently you did a
Copy.
project with Alejandro of Chained Existence called the Future Ancients.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because that stuff is pretty gnarly sounding too, man.
So during that time, or before the Future Agents was, or at least what to me, before it was a thing, I noticed Alejandro, he kept releasing videos of himself playing a lot of material on Facebook. You know, I'm a fan of Chain Existence, so, you know, being friends with him, I'm like, oh, he's showing his playing. Let's check it out. And every time I watched his videos, I was like, dude, I have the software to make this shit sick. So like not to be conceited or anything, but just being driven, you know, to help somebody out. And so I think after like the fourth or fifth video, I was just like, dude, this would sound sick with drums, bass, an orchestra, maybe a choir. You know, like I was trying to sound humorous, but at the same time, I was kind of like, let's see what he says. So
Totally.
uh, he res- he responded quickly to it, and I was ecstatic. I was just like, "Yeah, dude." So also during that time, I wanted to experiment working on someone else's material other than mine. Like, I wonder what I can do for this other, you know, this other artist.
That's a good growing
So I was,
experience too, you know, to help
yeah,
with you know working with other people. I mean, obviously it was a sick collaboration, man.
it was a lot of fun, and for two reasons. One, I think some months before that, sometime after I released the EP SL1, I started studying up on studio engineering for death metal, metal, and also orchestral uh, for orchestral mixing and mastering for like TV and film scoring. Because I'm like, okay, the EP was great, but if it would have sounded better, you know, like, I mean, if I would have had the knowledge I have now while I was working on that EP, I think it probably would have done the, you know, what was written a bit more justice.
Mhm.
So I was trying to put, I was buying new software. Like I switched from Superior Drummer to GGD to get good drums, and then I switched from Easy Mix like presets to Neural DSP, and I started getting more expensive plugins. And I think at that time I purchased $1,000 on Spitfire Audio software.
Wow.
So, and I had like all this other stuff to work with, and I think I wasn't getting bored with trying to write new material. I think I was just uh, like a feeling stagnant. So I was excited when he's like, dude, yeah, let's make this happen. Like, how are we gonna do this? And I'm like, just come to my house. This was pre-pandemic, so I was like, just come to my house with your guitar. You can sit at my desk. Nobody will bother you. I'll show you how to record and how to stop, and you can just track at your own comfort. Like, don't worry about it. So
Wow.
he's like, no shit. So he came over, and we went out to lunch. Got some food, and then he brought that beautiful Strandberg of his over and let me jam on it a little bit. It was a lot of fun. And
Nice.
I told him, I was like, okay, so I want you to go through all these tones and pick out the ones that you like the most. And he's like, well, what do you got? So I showed him, and he's like, well, I'm looking for this, this, and that. I'm like, okay, so try this, try this, try this. And he's like, oh, dude, okay, cool. So when I noticed, or I was like, you go ahead and do this. I'm gonna go over here and play with my kid. I'm just gonna, you're gonna be in your own world. Just there you go, punch yourself in, punch yourself out. And when I noticed he went silent, he was just on a roll. I'm like, okay, cool. This is rolling. This is rolling. So when he was finished with it and he sent it back to me, uh, it took me a long time not only to work on it and like add guitars, bass, and drums for him. I was just like, just record what you have written and trust me. Like, if you don't like it, you can, keep it or scratch it or whatever. I don't care. But I have a feeling, this is gonna be fun. And it was. So I sent him like, snippets here and there, like letting him know that I was working on it. Um, and he was uh, ecstatic to say the least, thankfully.
Wow. Wow.
Because we had never worked on music together before. So that, and it was very fun for me because I was writing drums to somebody else's material. And I was also writing bass guitar to somebody else's material, and his material is uh, it's something else. So programming, orchestral strings and brass and a choir to it, and also otherworldly instruments to go for like the ambience and feel that Alejandro was going for. Um, it wasn't really a challenge. It was kind of like a vacation musically. Uh, so it was strangely easy, but at the same time, it was kind of, there was some lessons learned working on his, because me, when I work on my stuff, I like to just go for it and like really try to create like an explosive, kind of sound with everything with the orchestra. But there was something about his material that was kind of saying like, okay, pull back just a little bit, like, make the instruments play just a little bit quieter, not like full velocity like you did with your EP. And
Nice.
it worked out beautifully. So I was like, hey man, I know I'm taking like 6 to 8 months with this, but I I want your shit to sound sick. I don't want it to sound like my last EP. I want it to sound fucking killer, So, and he was like, no, dude, it's all good. I'm like, here's something. Here's what I've been working on. Blah blah blah. It's almost done. Uh, and he got back to me with more praise. So the more I showed him what was going on, the more it became exciting to work on because he was just incredibly stoked. So once I sent him his final products, uh, he was like, dude, I need you to be on that first track, bro. And I'm like, okay, where do you want me? I'm like, sure, absolutely. Like I've never played over. bossa nova flamenco before. So where do you want me? And he's like, I want you at the end, like right at the end. And I'm like, okay, cool, sure, let's do this. Um, so yeah, I'm glad it turned out well for him too. It took a long time to find like the right uh, formula for mixing and mastering it too, because I'm not, I didn't really study this too much, growing up. So there was a lot of heavy research like involved because, he was forking out cash. So I'm like, all right, dude, let's chained existence hasn't been around for a second. You want to let people know that you're still making music. Let's make sure that your music sounds sick, like, and
Hell yeah, man.
huge and cinematic. So I wasn't going to send him the final product until I thought it was great, to where I was excited. And once that natural mental high finally clicked, then I was just like, check it out, dude. Here you go. So
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
It's an intense set of songs. That I listened to the 3 tracks on Bandcamp, and it's just like a barrage of, insanity, man, in a good way. It's just,
yeah,
like it's got the Latin groove, but then it'll totally just break down into some crazy tech stuff. And then you got the hard crushing, breakdowns. I mean,
yeah,
everything is in there, all the elements of a killer album. And the sound on it is insane, man. I mean, it's just very well mixed. You can hear all the instruments cutting through. People definitely need to check out the Future Ancients, man, because you guys just
absolutely.
totally just killed it, dude.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing
Thank
stuff,
you.
dude.
I did some more studying on orchestral mixing and mastering after that release. So there's a little part in the back of my head that goes like, "Oh, dude, should you recreate it?" And just send it to him, like, because all those sessions are gone now. But
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, yeah, no, that was definitely a fun project, and
And you guys
people,
got Tony Cole to do the album
yeah,
cover, right?
yeah. Tony Cole did that artwork beautifully, as always. So it
Yeah.
was, I was blown away when I first saw it. I was like, oh, dude, that's Tony. Like, you
Yeah.
knew it was Tony when you
Oh
first looked
yeah.
at it.
I didn't even have
So,
to look at read about who the artist was or anything. It was just like when I saw that
right.
art, I was like, oh man, hell yeah, they got Tony
Yeah.
Cole. It looks
Yeah.
sick,
And,
dude.
and that was unbeknownst to me. Like, this is all Alejandro. Like,
Oh, okay.
all this hard work is all Alejandro. This is all, me. I was just like, okay, how do you want it to go? And he's like, I want it to sound like this, and this. And I'm like, okay, I'll send you something back. So, it, you know, the only thing that I wrote uh, was my guitar solo. I mean, Alejandro wasn't there for like the orchestrals and the other instruments and stuff like that, but uh, that was I. Yeah, I was writing for Alejandro, at the same time. But there's this like weird mental feeling that, you know, he wrote those drums, he wrote those bass parts, because he wrote the riffs for that. He had the foundation first. So yeah, that I like calling the Future Ancients Alejandro's project. It's
I
because
think you
it's
guys, yeah, you guys, it was definitely, however it came about, the fact that you guys both put your heads together on that and made that happen, man,
yeah,
it's really cool.
and
Um,
it was a breeze. Like, that was the cool part about it. There were absolutely no creative differences, and I wasn't like mentally prepared for that, because Alejandro's just a rad person,
he
like
is.
nothing. I mean, yeah. So working on it, I wasn't really too nervous. Like, I hope he likes it. I was just like, I have a pretty good feeling he, is gonna be stoked once he hears this. Um, and it was great. Didn't he didn't ask to change anything. He asked to add a couple of things, which were good ideas, very, very good ideas. So that dude's definitely got an amazing mind for music. So I want this. I hope the Future Ancients takes off for him.
Me too, man. I'm gonna be hopefully getting him on here for an episode too, man, just to, kind of talk about his beginnings and the future ancients. And because you're right, man, he's got a really cool musical mind and just a really, really cool dude. So I definitely want to get him on here in the future.
And his playing is seriously rad too because he's relaxed.
Yeah, he makes it look easy, but the stuff he's playing is incredibly technical.
It's hard, dude.
Yeah, pretty cool.
I studied a little bit of Spanish flamenco, but I was doing it with a guitar pick. He does it like how you're supposed to. So that did, mad props. He's something else. He's something else that the world definitely needs to hear.
Totally, man. Well, hey, bro, thanks for coming on here, man, and telling this awesome story, dude, and we'll have to get you on again in the future or something like that, and just kind of follow your progressions and stuff. Definitely a treat having you here, and anybody at home who's listening to this, definitely check out Sam Lanyon. You can find him on Bandcamp. Also the Future Ancients, really killer band, and Ontogeny as well. In fact, we have a show coming up with them January 29th in San Francisco. So to anybody who wants to come down to that, come down, party with us. And thanks, Sam, for doing this with us. And fuck yeah, metal.
Not a problem at all, man.
Metal fucking rules and Mendo rules as well. So
thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Cheers, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Absolutely.
Later, dude.
Later.